starting with the back page of the study guide, problem number 19. Remember on these, the things you have to do are define your variables and answer with the sentence. Okay, this one is talking about a square, so you can start with a picture. You have the length of each side of a square, so I have a square. Did it tell me what the length of each side is? So what do I call it? Okay, the length of each side is decreased by 4, so I made a smaller square, and what are those sides? The perimeter of the new square. So this is my old one. This is my new. How do you find the perimeter of something? Right. So you could either write x minus 4 4 times, or I could just say 4 times x minus 4. Since it's a square, they're all the same. Is means 10 more than means half the perimeter of the original square. So half of the original. What's the perimeter of the original square? If you add all those x's, you get 4x. So now we have our equation, we just solve it. So 4x minus 16 equals 10 plus 2x. Subtract over our 2x. Add your 16. Divide by 2. And x is 13. And so then you have to answer with the sentence. The question wanted the dimensions of the original square. So the original had sides 13 inches long, or it was 13 by 13. Questions on that one? So problem 20. This is one of the mixture ones. So our strategy was always to make a table here. Across the top we put our formulas, which would be am I giving you that on the test? No. What I'm giving you on the test, these 3 formulas are written on the board. Okay, so anything else you need to know. Alright, so this time we are mixing hamburger that is 7% fat with hamburger that is 15% fat to obtain a mixture that is 10%. So we know you always mix your lowest and your highest to get something in the middle. Alright, so then we go back and reread the problem again. How many pounds of extra lean hamburger that is 7% fat? So I don't know it. I said how many, so it would be x. Must be mixed with 30 pounds of hamburger that is 15% fat. So the amount of my 15 is 30. So what's the total? What if I had said must be mixed with to get 30 pounds in the total? So if the total was 30, what would this one have been? 30 minus x. Okay. So concentration, 7% is 15%, 10%. So then we multiply. So we get 0.07x to do 0.15 times 30, and you can go ahead and multiply that. I'm just writing it out so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Now the nice thing about these is we can just write our equation straight from that point. What do we have to do? Add the first 2 to equal the total. So 0.07x plus 0.15 times 30 equals 0.1 times x plus 30. I'm going to subtract over my 3. Subtract over my 0.07x. Divide by your 0.03 and you get 50. So then you always have to go back and answer the question that was asked. It said how many pounds of the hamburger that is 7% fat. If I look, X is the amount of the 7%. So that must be 50 pounds. Questions on that one? So always on those concentrations, you mix your highest and your lowest to get something in the middle. If I said pure, what's that concentration? Pure is 100%. If I said water, that's 0%. Okay, this one is an interest problem. So what's the interest formula? Okay. So we're making 2 investments. He's putting some of the money at 11.5%, some of it at 12%, and then we have a total. So it tells us a realtor borrowed $90,000. So $90,000 is what he's starting with. Where do I put that number? Total principal. It's what he has to begin with. He was able to borrow part of the money at 11.5%. So do I know how much? No, so we call it X. Okay, so then what do we have left for the 12%? Your total minus X. All right. For my rate, 11.5%, what would I do? Okay, 12%. And did it tell me the rate for the total? No. Okay, so we can leave it blank. Time. It said annual interest, so annual is how many years? Okay. And then it said the annual interest on the 2 loans amounts to $10,525. What is that? Total interest. So then we can just multiply across. So I get 0.115x, 0.12 times 90,000 minus x, and our total. So just like the others, after this point, you just add the first 2. To equal your total. And then it's just a matter of solving our equation. So 0.12 times 90,000, 10,800. So if we add those like terms, subtract over the 10,800, divide. and you get 55,000. Want to know how much was invested at each rate. So to answer the question, X was the 11.5%. So there must be $55,000 at 11.5%. And how do you get the amount at 12%? 90,000 minus X, so that would be 35,000 at 12%. Is this helping, guys? Let's look at the last word problem. Okay, a truck driver operates a delivery service. His startup costs amounted to $2,300. He estimated that it cost him $3 per delivery. He charges $5.50 per delivery. X is the number of deliveries he makes. So part A, express the cost as a function of X. So I'm looking for C of X. We're just writing an equation of a line. Y equals mx plus b. Look back at your problem. We need our m and our b. The cost is what it's costing him. So the very first number in the problem tells us his startup costs were $2,300. Does he have to pay that over and over again, or is that a one-time fee? One-time fee. That's your y-intercept. Okay. If we keep reading, it costs him $3 per delivery. Is that repeated or one time? Repeated. Every time he makes a delivery, it costs him $3. So his cost is 3x plus 2,300. Part B. Revenue. Revenue is the money you're bringing in. So how much does he make? $5.50. Is that a one-time or a repeated? Repeated. So you put your X with that. This one, there's no lump sum check you got in the mail, so there's no y-intercept. That's a 0. Part C, it wants to know when revenue will equal cost. So revenue is my 5.5x equals my cost, 3x plus 2,300. So subtract over your 3x, divide by your 2.5, and you get 920, is that right? Deliveries? So if he makes 920 deliveries, he breaks even. Okay, so make sure, if you're missing these, make sure you're writing it in and correcting it as you go so you have all this worked out. Okay, so moving to the next page, 14 through 18. Do we want to just work out certain problems on this page? Do we need to work everything? You guys tell me what's going to help you the most. I don't want to bore you working every problem if we don't need it, but if we need it, we might as well. 16? What others do we need?
15.
What else? If you didn't get it, ask about it. You guys were good on 14? You used your interval notation and all that? 14, let's look at that one. Okay, 17, you guys know to graph that, you put it in y equals mx plus b form. So then you guys could graph that. 18, you notice that one doesn't have an x in it, so if you just solve for the y, you get y equals -6. So it's horizontal line at -6, so we're okay with that one? Okay. Let's look at these then. So 14. Test my drawing skills here. So part A, we have this parabola. Domain. I expect interval notation. So if you put all real numbers, I'm probably going to take off a half point on the test because I want interval notation. That's talking about your x's. So as we go from left to right, we always go small to large. Keep in mind, as this parabola extends, it's going to keep spreading out. So what x values do we end up hitting? All of them. Negative infinity to positive infinity. Range is your y's. So small to large, we go bottom to top. This is going down forever, so it's coming from, and infinities always get parentheses. It stops right here, which is a y value of 4. We do touch that point, so the 4 gets a bracket. X-intercepts. That's just asking where you touch the x-axis. So if we look, we hit it twice, right here and right here. So this is when x is 0, and this is when x is 4. So you could list them like that. You could list ordered pairs, so it'd be 0, 0, and 4, 0 if you did the two separate ordered pairs. Y-intercept is where you hit the y-axis. We only touch the y-axis at one point, right here at 0. Or you could write that as 0, 0, if you preferred. B. So this one looks like this. So my domain. As we go from left to right, this graph keeps extending both directions, so it hits range is your y's. This is going down forever, so it's coming from negative infinity. Stops when we get right here, and that's a y value of 4. It hits it, so it gets a bracket. X-intercepts. We hit the x-axis right here, which is -1, and right here, which is 3. Or if you did ordered pairs, you would do -1, 0, and 3, 0. Y-intercept, assuming my graph is drawn correctly, it is. Where do we hit the y-axis? At 2. Or that would be the point 0, 2, if you did the order. Are those okay? C. I missed my point there. Okay. So the domain. Domain is the x. It goes from left to right. So this is going forever in the negative direction. So it's coming from negative infinity. And it stops right here when my x is 4. So the 4 we get a bracket. My range. As this extends, this keeps going down. So it's going to negative infinity. Stops right here, and that's a y value of 0. X-intercepts. Where does this graph hit the x-axis? 4. What if I asked for an ordered pair? What would you tell me?
0.
Y-intercept. Where does it hit the y-axis? What's that as an ordered pair? Okay, so you could list it either way there. Alright, does that help with those? Problem 15 asks us to find f of 4 in each of those graphs. So f of 4, what that means is find the y when your x is equal to 4. So if I go to this graph, when my x is 4, that's right here. What is the y value of that? 0. So on 15a, your answer is 0. So for B, f of 4. So when x is 4, we are right here on my graph. So when my x is 4, I'm here. What's my y value? -2. (15c) f of 4. So when the x is 4, you're here. What's your y value? 0. So that one is really just checking if you know your function notation. Okay, 16 is also a function notation question, but this time I'm asking you to plug into an actual equation. So part A, f of -5. That means you go into your equation and you replace all of your x's with a -5. -5 squared is +25. We have a negative in front of that, so that makes it a negative. -7 times -5 is +35. Minus 22. So -25 plus 35 is 10. Minus 22 gets us -12. B, we're replacing our x with an a minus 3. So we don't only plug in numbers. Sometimes I plug in expressions that have variables in them. Okay, let's start here. When I say a minus 3 squared, what does that mean? Right. Saying there's 2 of those. So you're going to have to FOIL. So I still have this negative on the outside. First, I start FOILing that. I get a squared minus 3a minus 3a is minus 6a plus 9. So if I distribute my negative, it's negative a squared plus 6a minus 9. Distribute your -7. Then add like terms. So 6a and -7a is a -a. -9, +21, and -22 gives you -10. That one look okay? Alright. Then let's go to the next page. So this is 7 through 13. Which one do you want to talk about? 7 through number 10. What else?
13.
If you need it, yell it out. We've got time. 12. Anything else? So on problem 7, you found your slope. 8, you did the distance, so we know distance formula is given to you. Number 9, I asked for the midpoint. So my points were -5, -3, and -1, 4. So midpoint formula is on the board. This is your x sub 1, your y sub 1, x sub 2, and y sub 2. So looking at the formula, x sub 1 plus x sub 2. So -5 plus -1 divided by 2. Y sub 1 plus y sub 2 divided by 2. So I get -6 over 2 and +1 over 2. So -3, comma, 1/2. Number 10 asks for the standard form of the line. Before you can give the standard form, you actually have to write the slope-intercept. So in doing problem 10, I'm actually going to do problem 11 as well. We know from problem 7, my slope is 7/4. Nobody needs me to work that out? Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And then you take one of the 2 points. Doesn't matter a bit which one you go with. So let's say I use the -1, 4. The first thing I'm going to do is plug into y equals mx plus b. So my y is 4, m is 7/4, x is -1 plus b. So if I add my 7/4 over, you get 23 over 4 for the b. So my equation at this point is y equals 7/4 x plus 23 over 4. That's actually the answer to number 11, slope-intercept form. You have to do that when you write your standard form. Now, to get the standard form from this, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So I have to get x and y on the same side. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract over my 7/4 x. So we have a -7/4 x plus y equals 23 over 4. Okay, from there, standard form says you can't have any fractions. So if I want to get rid of my fractions, what would I have to do? Multiply by? A 4 would get rid of the fractions, but standard form also says that x has to be positive, so I need to multiply everything by a -4. So that will give me a positive 7x, a -4y equals -23, and that's my standard form. Is that alright with everyone? Okay, let's talk about 12 and 13. So in 12, we have a point, -2 radical 3. Part A wants a vertical line. What does the equation of a vertical line always look like? X equals a number. If it's going to go through this point, what does my x have to equal? -2, because that's the x value of that point. So it's just x equals -2. So as long as you know what the equation of a vertical line looks like, that's a really easy question, no work required. B wants the equation of the horizontal line. What's the equation of a horizontal line? Y equals a number. So if you go through this point, your Y is, and that's it. What's the slope of a vertical line? Vertical line slope is undefined, horizontal line slope is 0. Good. 13. So we are going to use this equation, and we have this point. Part A, we want to be parallel. Parallel means same slope. What's the slope of this line? So I have to write the equation of a line with a slope of 5/4 that goes through the point 4, -2. So we just plug into y equals mx plus b. My y is -2. M 5/4. X is 4 plus b. You multiply those. Subtract over your 5. B is -7. So your final equation is y equals 5/4 x minus 7. Part B wants perpendicular. What's true about perpendicular lines? They're opposite reciprocals. So, if this line has a slope of 5/4, what slope will I be using? -4/5. And still going through the point 4, -2. So plug into your y equals mx plus b. So -2 equals -4/5 times 4 plus b. So if you add 16/5 to each side, those cancel. -2 plus 16/5 would be 6/5. So our equation is y equals the -4/5 x plus 6/5. Any questions about horizontal and vertical or perpendicular and parallel? So, last page, 1 through 6, solving these equations. What do we need to look at? Number 6. What else? Okay. Do we need number 2? Did you guys get that? You know what an identity is? If everything cancels out and you have 0 equals 0, that's a true statement, so it's identity. And what else do you have to tell me if it's an identity? All real numbers for your solution. Okay. So problem 1. There are like 3 different options for how to solve this equation. Give me one option. Okay, you could get rid of your fractions. Take both sides times 6. That would work. When you do that, 6 to divided by 2 is 3. So the 2 is gone now, and this is a 3. So you have 3 times the x minus 1. Over here, these 6's drop, so that's 3x minus 2. If I subtract my 3x over, they drop and I get negative 3 equals negative 2. Right, there's no x's left. This is a false statement, so that means no solution, and we call that contradiction. If there's no solution, it's a contradiction. Do we need to work through this one another way? Does anybody, if you hadn't multiplied by 6 first, what's another way you could have solved it? Could you just deal with the fractions? If you had to, this is like a 1x over 2, so that's a 1/2 x minus 1/2. 3 over 6 is a 1/2 x. 2 over 6 is 1/3. Subtract your 1/2 x over. You get negative 1/2 equals negative 1/3. So again, no solution, contradiction. You could even cross multiply on this problem if you wanted to. So lots of different options there. Okay, let's look at number 4. Okay, so again, we have a couple options. We can either multiply by something to get rid of all the fractions, or we can just break them up and deal with them. What do you want to do? What? Multiply. So if I'm looking at a 5 and a 2, what would I have to multiply by to get rid of them? 10. Okay. When you do that, you have to take everything times 10. So every single term, including this 5. So 5 times 10 will give me a 50, minus 10 divided by 5 is 2. So you have a 2 times the 3x minus 4. 10 divided by 2, so 5 times the 7 minus 2x. This is like a negative 2 that you have to distribute. So that gives you a negative 6x and a positive 8. Okay, if I subtract over my 35, add my 6x, divide by negative 4, so x is negative 23 over 4. I didn't ask you to identify these, but if you get a solution, what's the label for that? If you get a solution, if you get x equals, that's a conditional. It's true under the condition that x is this number. Number 6. Yeah, I shouldn't have came to school today. You guys are going to get me sick. Need my little bubble up here. Should have brought a face shield.
Don't breathe. Nobody breathes.
Yeah. Open the windows, get fresh air moving.
I sneezed 25 times. Same though. after I got done running. My allergies are so bad.
That is awful. Okay, this one asks you to solve for x. So we've done problem solving for a variable, you just have to get it by itself. The tricky part with this one is there are actually two x's in the equation, here and here, so it's not quite as basic as a lot of the other ones we've done. What you want to do is start out by getting everything with the x on one side and everything without it on the other. So I'm going to add over my 5bx. Can you actually add ax plus 5bx? No, so I'm just going to keep them both. Okay, you'll notice this term does not have an x, so I'm going to move it to the other side. Okay, so everything on the left has an x. What could you do to these? Take out the x. Now you have x times something, so to get it by itself, the opposite of multiplying is? Man, I am just amazing at time management, guys.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so test tomorrow. If you know what you're doing on your study guide, you